Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this macrame cross. Now it's really quite simple and easy, and for this, if you can tell, I have a jump ring at the top. You can choose to do that, and then you can use it for whatever you want, like a pendant on a necklace or anything else really. So if you want to learn how to do that, then stay tuned. Now these are the things that you're going to need. You'll need a scissor to cut your cord, and then of course you'll need your cord. In this case I'm just using a 1mm satin cord in black. And then you will need your spacer beads. You can do this without beads, but I just like the way it looks. You can use any beads that you choose to. I'm just using some silver coloured metal spacer beads. All you need to make sure of is that the beads will go, the hole in your beads is big enough for the cord to go through. And then right here I just have one jump ring. So get your things together and then let's get started. So to make this cross, the first thing I do is I get my mini macrame board. That's what I'll be using in this tutorial. Just purely, I have it at hand and it makes it a lot easier to work with. If you don't have this, you can find another way. You can pin things, use pins, use tape, really anything you can think of. But I'm going to use this just to make it a lot easier. So the first thing I do is I get my cord out. I get one piece of cord. This is going to be a holding cord, so this really doesn't need to be much longer than what your actual cross is going to be. But for this purpose, all I've done is to make sure to make it long enough so that it'll reach across my board, so I can use my board to fasten it. This piece is probably about 50 centimeters in total, but I've doubled it over, because what I'm going to do now is double it over and then have this loop, which I will then attach like this in one of the notches and pull it tight. So it's now sat tightly on one end, and all I do is pull the ends down to the other end and then pull them through a notch. And I now have my holding cords secured on my board. Now you want to get your next cord out. This is going to be your working cord. I've made this roughly about 60 centimeters in total. I'm probably going to end up cutting some excess off, but just to make sure you have enough to work with. It all depends on how big or how long you want your cross to be. So again, I double this over to find about the middle. I then take one end, I keep hold of the middle, and then I feed that end underneath my two holding cords, and then have the middle placed, about the middle placed underneath the two holding cords. What I want to do now to fasten my working cord to my holding cords is just to make a simple square knot. And to do this, you grab one side of your working cords. This doesn't matter what side you start with at all, as long as you make sure to keep doing the same thing. So you take one, create like a loop and put it over your two holding cords, and you then take this cord from the other side, put it over the cord that you just put over, and then underneath that you feed that end underneath your two holding cords and the other working cord, and then pull it up through the loop that you created, and then you pull that tight. And that's the first half of a square knot. And now you do the same thing but on the opposite side, because that's how you create a square knot. You always have to alternate what side you do. Again, make the loop, put the other one underneath, pull it through the loop, and then tighten it. So there is your first square knot. So now that we've made our first square knot and we've attached our working cord to our holding cords, I want to now start adding in some beads. To do this, you start with one side, get your working cord, you grab whatever bead you've chosen to work with, and you just feed it on there, push it down, take the other side, feed another bead on, and then push that down. So you now have two beads ready. All you do now is you make another square knot. Remember, all you want to make sure to do now is start with the same side that you started with before. So you put one over, create a loop, feed the other one underneath, and pull it up through the loop. And then you tighten it. And the other side. There you go. I now repeat the same thing, because what I will do is I'll have one square knot in between every set of beads. So I've just made that square knot. It's now time to add on some more beads. Feed them all the way down. And then make another square knot. And tighten that. And the other side. And now this is really up to you how you want your cross to be, how many sets of beads you want to make in each section. I'm going to do 3 sets at the top, so that's another set of beads added on now. Feed them all the way down, and then I'm going to make one last square knot here to secure these beads in place. And there we go. And this is going to be the top section of the cross. So we've now reached the point where we've made a top section of a cross. We now need to be able to make the outer sections. So what we need to do is add in some cord. For this you need to cut off 4 lengths of cord. These are mine are roughly about 25 centimeters. Again, I'm probably going to cut off the excess, but keep in mind when you do this kind of work as well, it's not just about the length of cord you're going to need, you also need to have enough to work with. So I get 1 length out, fold it in half to find about the middle, and then you want to keep hold of the middle. Take 1 working cord. What you want to do now is attach this cord to one side, to your working cord. To do this we use a knot called the lax head knot. And what you do is you feed the new cord underneath, feed the loop underneath, keep hold of your working cord, and then you want to grab your ends and pull them through the loop. And then pull it tight, and then feed it all the way down. And that's often how you attach cords in general in macrame. You grab another one. Again, find the middle. And you want to attach this to the same one, so you want 2 cords on each side. Pull your ends through the loop and then feed it down and tighten it. So that's one side done. Grab another one and then now attach this to the other side. So you feed the loop underneath and then grab your ends and pull them through and tighten it. And then the last cord, underneath, and pull your ends through and tighten them good. So these cords are going to be the ones that are going to form, you can call it the arms on the cross. Now before you start making them, you want to finish off the bottom piece. Again, to fasten all this, so it's not going to go anywhere, you now continue making square knots. Just like you were doing before. The first one now you just make one after you've attached these cords without any beads. Remember to go in the same direction as you have been the whole time, alternating. There you go. And now it's time to add in a couple more beads. Again, one bead on each working cord. And then you make another square knot to fasten this down. That's one square knot in between. Because we're doing one square knot in between each set of beads, it's now time to add another set of beads. And again another square knot. And as you can see, the cords are getting smaller and smaller, which is natural, because obviously you've been working with it and making knots. Add another set of beads. So for this, to make this cross, all you need to know really is the two different kinds of knots. There's the basic square knot, and then there's the lark's head knot to attach extra cord. And those two knots are really basic knots that get used a lot in macrame in general. So they're always good to know. I'm adding my fourth set of beads to the bottom part of the cross, and then we'll see how that looks. I think I'm going to add another set. Feed your beads onto your card, like you've been doing the whole time. And then finish off with one last square knot. This is what I mean, because the cords are getting quite sharp now, which obviously you're going to end up cutting something off, but you do need to be able to have something left to work with at the end. So there you go. I think that's the amount of beads that I'm going to do. So now we're going to move on to make the arms of the cross. So what I've just done now is I've just detached the project from my board. This is only to flip it around basically and reattach it, so I can start working with the sides. Either if your cords on the sides are long enough, you can just make it stay put and use these notches, or if you're using something else, just use pins to fasten these down. This is purely because I've made these shorter, so I have to use the other way because it's shorter. So all I do now is I grab, you want to focus on these cords now on the side, so you want to find the two middle ones, because they are now going to be your holding cords. So you grab the two middle ones and attach them in one notch, and then on the top section you also want to find the two middle ones and attach them, because in both cases these are now going to be your holding cords, but you're doing one side at a time. So we'll focus on this one first. So now that it's all set up and ready, we want to start making the sides of the cross. We've already attached the holding cords, the two middle ones, so now what we want to do is work with these that are going to be your working cords. The first thing I do is just make a square knot with these over your holding cords. Now these might be a bit more difficult if you make them quite short, but it's just to not have too much waste of the cord really. So make one full square knot first, just like you were doing before. And now I want to just add the 2 beads. So we're continuing just like we were before. Except we're doing it on the sides. So again, you're adding 1 bead to each side, and then you want to tighten them down by making another square knot. There. And I'm going to attach another couple of beads. And fasten them with another square knot. There. Now this is where you want to decide how far you want to go. If you look at your cross proportion wise, how long you want the sides to be. So you can either choose to stop now or maybe add another one. Now I'm quite happy with the way that this looks, so I'm just going to leave it here. You can choose to make some more if you want to, that's completely up to you. So what I'm going to do now is flip around my board and simply start working on this other side, doing the exact same thing. So I start off with making a square knot. And then you want to get a pair of beads ready to feed onto your working cords. One side. And the other side. And then fasten them with another square knot, like we've been doing the whole time. Another set of beads, one on each working cord. And then finish that off with a square knot as well. As you can see, working with shorter cords is definitely a bit trickier than long ones, but I try not to waste too much cord, so that's why. So I've now made the same amount on here as the other side, so this is basically the cross done. All you need to do now is obviously finish off the ends and get rid of all the excess cord. So now what you want to do is finish it off. So you want to get rid of all these ends and you want to create something at the top that you can possibly attach it to if that's what you want to do with it. So the first thing I do is I get out my jump ring. I then get a pair of pliers and just open it up. Remember, when you open up jump rings, you always want to push it away or pull it against yourself. Basically like you open a door. You don't want to take it apart like that, because that's going to damage it and weaken it. And now what I do is the top where I had this loop, I put the loop into the jump ring, and then I close my jump ring back up. Best way to do this is to wiggle it back and forth and get it closer and closer. And if you can hear that, it's like a click. You kind of want to try and get that click, because when you hear that click, that means it's as close as it can be. Because when you're closing it up, the two edges are clicking against each other. And I always just go over it where the join is and just press on it. So that's your jump ring. Now what you want to do is, if you remember from beginning, this top loop is the same chords as it's coming out from the bottom. That were your original holding chords. So all you do now is, because you have your jump ring in there, so that's going to basically be a stopper from pulling it all the way through. You want to grab hold of your cross, and then you want to just pull your holding chords. So you pull your loop at the top tight. And don't worry, you're not going to break it or anything. Because even if it's come a bit out of shape as you're pulling it, all you do is then pull it back into shape. And you can see now the loop is a lot smaller. It's just enough for the jump ring to fit through. But it hasn't pulled all the way through because the jump ring stops it from doing that. So now you are ready to finish off your ends. For this, what I do is I get out a glue. For this I'm using Hypo cement, it's called. It's really good because first of all it dries clear, and also it has a very fine tip, so it's really good for precision work, which in this case I'm wanting to use it for. Because what you'll find when you make square knots is on each knot there's like a little well, and what you want to do is, to finish off and cram in the best possible way for things not to come undone, is you want to fill up that well with glue. I put a bit of glue around the ends as well where they're sticking out, but obviously you're going to be cutting them off as close as you can, so you might be cutting the glue off as well and then it won't make a difference. So you want to make sure to always fill up that well, because that's what's going to mainly hold it in place and secure it. And you want to do it on both sides and all the way around. And the last one. There. And then you just want to leave it to dry. Let the glue dry. So all there's left to do now is cut off the ends. So you just get a scissor for this, obviously, and then start cutting them off as close as you can, obviously without actually damaging your piece or anything. Now, what I tend to do is I have a couple of different pairs of scissors, because even though you've let this dry, there might still be a little bit here and there that isn't dry, or if you didn't really have enough patience to wait. So what I always do is I have one pair of scissors that I only ever use to cut things that I've glued, and then I have some other pairs that I purely use for not glued things, to keep them as in good condition as I can, just to not end up ruining all my scissors. Because even though you let this dry, there might be still a bit of tacky glue or a little bit of wet glue somewhere that you weren't aware of. You're cutting off all the ends. And there you basically have your finished cross with a jump ring at the top, so you can now attach it to whatever you want. Make it a pendant for a necklace or anything. And you can obviously make this in whatever colour you want, use whatever beads, or even make it without beads as well. I just think it accentuates it a bit, the shape of it, so that's how to make a macrame cross. I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.